Hey guys, welcome back to another video. It is me, Mysterious Cameraman, and today we are entering into the One Last Scene compilation, I guess you could call it. So, Nano V Movies is an incredible YouTuber. I think I've probably mentioned him in videos before. I probably have. I made so many videos by this point, I probably have. But, yeah, they're an incredible YouTuber, and they've done the One Marvelous Scene, the Excellent Scene. There's a few others I'm blanking on, but they did a lot. And they now did the One Last Scene. And this was the first one that I've kind of been, active on YouTube at the time of it. Or really, noticed that it was actually going on. So I really wanted to do it. So this is my entry into the One Last Scene. And I spent a while trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I was thinking about maybe doing the ending of Loki. And I thought of that, but I was like, I think someone else is going to do that. And also, I feel like it's too simple. I could do something that's really good. And then I started thinking of, The Flash. But The Flash doesn't have so many great endings, besides from Season 1. And I guess Season 3 even. There aren't so many incredible endings. So I was thinking of doing Season 1. And then I looked at Arrow. And yeah, I love Harry Potter. I love so many other things. But it was with Arrow, it was this is what I need to be doing. So I looked at, Season 8's finale first. And I was like, that's a pretty cool idea. Maybe I do that. But then I looked at Season 5's finale. I was like, that's another good one. Or then I looked at Season 6's and 7's finales. And I looked at The Climb. And then I looked at so many things. I looked at Season 2's finale. Season 4 and 3 I even looked at, as bad as they were. And I kind of came to the conclusion that the best one to really do was Season 1. So in this video, we're doing the One Last Scene of Arrow Season 1, Episode 23, Sacrifice. So, before we get into it though, if you haven't already seen anything for the Fan Film Awards 2023, go check that out. The awards are officially on December 30th, 2023 at, I think, 8 p.m. Eastern. But yeah, please guys get ready for that. It's a huge event and I'm so excited for it. So yeah, we're going to be talking about Sacrifice. And I've spoken about this episode a few times already. I've said how much I loved it. It's pretty undeniable. It's one of the best episodes of Arrow. And lately, ever since Season 8 finished for me, which I will be making a video on later, or in the future, I've been very, torn on Season 1. I've been looking back on it, sometimes very, that was incredible. And sometimes I look back on it and I'm like, that really wasn't that good. So, I was like, look, we three watched Sacrifice. So I did. And I'll admit, it's incredible. I knew it was incredible, but, this just reproved it. It's just so good. There's no way around it. And especially that last scene. I remember watching it for the first time, which wasn't that long ago. And that last scene happened. I did not think that was the end of it. That, when it panned out, and the camera zoomed up, and there were so many emotions that I felt then. But we have to talk about this whole episode to really get to the ending. So, I think we can even talk about the whole season. I can't go so much in depth. I think anyone watching this probably has a decent idea of what happens. But Oliver Queen is a playboy. Basically, Tony Stark gets stuck on an island for 5 years, but not really. And other seasons go into it. But it's flashbacks back and forth between the villain he's facing in present day, which is Malcolm Merlyn, as well as Edward Fires in the flashbacks. And it's this very incredible way that they're shooting it. And it's something that the first season of Arrow do so well that I've never seen any other show do, which is when it splits between the flashbacks and the real time. I've never seen a show do it, and I've never seen a show do it so well. And I love Sacrifice so much. But this whole season has a lot of characters in it that are all incredible, but I think the most important ones to be focusing on are really Oliver, Tommy, and Laurel. And these are three incredible actors. I love all of them. But this season did so well, tying everything into the Glades, making everything tie in together so well that I sometimes overlook, and I think can be overlooked, but it just does everything so well. And especially with Roy and Thea and that connection, everything feels connected in this finale. And this finale opened with the iconic Chained Oliver. And I say iconic because I think everyone's probably seen it. If you're a superhero fan, you probably know what it is. It's one of the most iconic scenes in the Arrowverse. And I can say that with confidence. Like, it was remade in the first episode of season 8 as well. Like, that is what, like, if you think of Sacrifice, that's what you should be thinking of. Like, that is the iconic opening to that episode. Him being chained up, and then him doing the whole climb up the chains, and then doing the drop. When I was watching season 8, and they did that thing, I knew immediately that's what they were going with. Because it's such an iconic scene. And I think you can tell when in 8 years later, they're remaking the scene exactly as it was to pay tribute to it. That's when you know you have a good scene on your hands. But that's not the last scene, that's the first scene. And as the episode progresses, we really get finales to these characters. Paul Blackthorne, who plays oh my god, I'm completely blanking, Captain Lance, is so incredible. He's such an incredible actor, and he's so good in this specific episode. And his scene, and it's specifically his call between Laurel and him, is so good. And throughout this episode, it's basically the Undertaking, which is the earthquake device that's going to destroy the Glades. And throughout this whole episode, they're basically trying to stop it. And Oliver escapes his prison, and they find out that the Undertaking is happening tonight. So Moira Queen, Oliver's mother, decides to go on television and basically admit to it, that it's happening, and then gets arrested. This is such a great ending to this character. Like, Moira sacrificing herself for the Glades is such a good ending. And it's paid off so well throughout this whole season. So it's so good that this is how this character's story ends in this season. And everyone starts evacuating the Glades. And we get some scenes with Thea and Roy, and they're trying to evacuate the Glades. It's such a good part of the season. And they evacuate the bus. It's just so good. Like, there's no way around it. It's such a good part of the season. And they do it so well. Like, them trying out of the Glades. And we get a lot of good resolution for Thea and Roy. And then we get more. And then Felicity starts working with Captain Lance. And, well, at this point, Detective Lance. And they're like, she gets arrested. And then she gets out of arrested. It's a long story. But if we get to important parts, they start working together to defuse the bomb. And we get this excellent scene where Laurel and Captain Lance talk. I'm just going to be calling them Captain Lance. I'm not changing it. But that scene is so good. Because them on the phone, and you can feel the finality in that scene. Like, you can feel how these characters know that this is the end. How this is a sense of finality to it. And how they don't know if they're making it out of it alive. And I think it's such a good part of it. And you can see everything that Laurel's been doing throughout the whole season is paid off here. And same with Captain Lance. And it's just done so well. So then, episode goes on. And Malcolm eventually fights Oliver. And that whole thing happens on the rooftop. And they eventually realize that Laurel's office, where she is currently, is in the Glades. And this is the ending. I'm not going to focus too much on Malcolm on this thing. He's so good. His scenes with Tommy are some of the best parts of this episode. But I really want to focus on this last scene because that's, again, the whole point of this. So, they go there. And what happens is something that I can never really... That's a feeling I'm never going to get again. I don't know how Legends Tomorrow Season 1 ends again. I kind of forgot. And I don't know if they're going to have some crazy ending to the first season. I know Captain Gold dies, so I don't know if they're going to do that incredible. And if that's going to be the Tommy Merlin death that was then repeated in Arrow with Eddie Thawne. I don't really know what they're doing. But this is the iconic death of the Arrowverse. I think that's undeniable. But let's just be in it. Laurel gets trapped under some rubble. And Tommy runs in and lifts up the rubble. How Tommy can do this doesn't really matter. But Laurel gets free. And Laurel runs out of the building. And this whole season, you know that Laurel's so dedicated to her work. So we know as the audience that she's not leaving the Glades. She needs to keep working. So Tommy is in love with Laurel. But Oliver in the last episode... Laurel basically cheated on Tommy with Oliver. It's not even basically they did. But Tommy is very clearly mad at Oliver. They have a great scene in this episode where they start fighting. Not like fist fighting, but like arguing. But again, Tommy sacrifices his life for Laurel. And basically, Laurel gets out from the rubble, and she runs out of the building. But then the building collapses behind her. And Oliver's currently on the way to the building. He found out that Laurel was integrated, so he was already on his way. And he gets in, and Laurel exits, and the building then immediately crashes behind her. And she keeps screaming Tommy, and her acting is so good. And she's running towards the building, but Paul Blackthorne, Captain Lance, is holding her back. And the acting from Katie Cassidy, who is Laurel, and from Paul Blackthorne, and that random other girl who's the lawyer friend or whatever, they're all doing such a good job in this scene. Like, you are feeling the pain that is felt. And then Oliver then gets to the scene, and even though he's doing these epic motorcycle stunts, there's something somber about it. So he runs in, he takes off his helmet, and he looks at Tommy. And Tommy is crushed under this rubble. And, okay, maybe Tommy can make it out. But then Oliver lifts the slab of concrete, I think, and Tommy is stabbed right through the chest. And Oliver knows that this is it for Tommy. But they start talking, and it's like this incredible sequence. And they begin with Tommy's saying, he apologizes, and he says, oh, I'm just like my father. And Oliver's telling him he isn't. And then Tommy's just, you stop lying, we know I'm not making it out of this alive. And it's such a fun part of it. It's not fun, it's so sad, but, they do it so well, and you can feel the emotion pouring off of, Oliver and Malcolm, and even the acting. I can't describe the acting in these last few minutes of this episode. You're gonna have to watch it, or it's gonna be playing on the screen. But Oliver, Stephen Amell, is in tears. Is screaming at his body. He's he looks like he just lost his best friend because he's about to. And clearly Tommy's come to terms with that. And Tommy then asked Oliver if Oliver killed his father. Oliver then lied to him and said no. Again, Malcolm didn't actually die, but as far as Oliver knew at the time, Malcolm is dead. And Tommy thanks Oliver. But Oliver is now hurt because he just lied to his dying best friend. And now Oliver is in so much pain. And Tommy says thank you. And he dies. Tommy then just flat out just dies. And his head slumps. And Oliver then starts crawling at Tommy's body. And it is the most emotional scene, I think, in all of the Arrowverse. And I'm willing to say that with confidence. If you have seen Invincible, Season 2, Episode 22 of The Flash, one of the best endings of any Arrowverse show. And I could have really done that. I definitely could have. But this, I honestly could have even done that. I honestly maybe should have done that, but not the point. This was such a good, that ending. You could see the pain on Barry's face of how he knew that this dude just took the poeticness of that scene, and you can see that just taken right from this, because Arrow Season 1 birthed The Flash, birthed DC Legends, then Supergirl, then Black Lightning, then Batwoman, then all the other weird shows that came after. So this death was the precedent. And you saw that in the death of oh my god. How am I forgetting? Eddie Thawne. Oh my god, I could not have forgotten that. But you saw in the death of Eddie Thawne, they're literally wearing the same white button down. So you can see that these characters are clearly, this death of Tommy Merlin, is clearly the base death of the Arrowverse. And Stephen Amell's acting in the scene has never been matched in the Arrowverse. His crying, and same with the crying of Laurel. And then Oliver's face fades into the rolling of the street. And the street is rolling, it's not rolling, but the camera's rolling across the street. And then the camera pans up to a shaky cam, like a drone, like a really awesome shaky cam shot that feels like being torn and manipulated in so many directions, just like our hearts in that scene. And Laurel is being held back still by her father, and then it pans up, showing the destruction of the city, and then cuts to the title card. And that is such an appropriate ending and such a good ending. And you can never match the emotion that you feel during this scene. Like, I think that this is the best ending that the Arrowverse has ever done. And I've praised Invincible. I really have. And I know I made to make this review. I could have done Invincible. And I honestly definitely could have. But this is such an incredible ending. Because Invincible couldn't have happened. The death of Henry Allen couldn't have happened without this. And yes, Zoom killing him is such an emotional death. And Barry's acting in that scene is so good. But I can even memorize Zoom's speech. But that doesn't make that scene the best. Because that scene is nowhere near what this scene accomplishes. Because it does something that scene didn't do. Because you knew that Henry was gone. You could see that from a mile away. And when Zoom ran into that house, it's such a good scene. And I can't deny that. But this is what made that possible. This scene was the original death of the Arrowverse. Sure, Malcolm died earlier. And Robert Queen died in just the pilot. But this is what started the Arrowverse. Maybe Arrow Season 1 as a whole started, but it was Tommy Merlin's death that set in motion everything else. Because without his death in that ending scene, everything else couldn't have happened. And I know that one scene can't affect hours and hours upon TV, shows upon shows, but it does. Because this death is what affected everything to come. Because not just Arrow Season 1 became the model of every show, but this death did. Because Arrow Season 1 was improved upon in Arrow Season 2. But not in the death. The death of Moira, as much as you want to manipulate it, is based off the death of Tommy Merlin. And that is because nothing can top the death of Tommy, because that was the original death, and that's what ended such an incredible season. And no one who was watching that at the time could have expected, or anyone who watches it for the first time, Tommy's death, and then the incredible shot that ended the season. You could not have asked for anything more to end that season. That is the best ending that the Arrowverse has done. Be assured, Invincible does have a great ending, but the season as a whole, that's not a season ending. That is an episode cliffhanger. This ended a season and set in motion everything else. The ending of the Flash Season 1 was clearly mimicked off this. And I don't know what happens in DC Legends. I don't know what happens in Supergirl. But I know that there's a very good chance that they're basing it off it. Because I know that Captain Cold dies in DC Legends. And I'm willing to bet that he dies in the last 3 minutes. I'm willing to bet that. So, who knows? But this death, this scene, this episode, was what defined the Arrowverse. Because as good as Season 1 is, nothing tops Sacrifice in Season 1. This is one of the best episodes of the Arrowverse of all time. And that is partially because of Tommy's death. Mostly because of Tommy's death, even. Because this whole season built up to this one moment, this one scene. And you can say what you want about finales and last scenes, but when a whole season of TV, a whole 41 minutes each a piece of 23 episodes of television leading up to a single death at the last moments of the season, from 30 seconds from his death, the show ends. That is a season ending. That is, sure, call it a season cliffhanger. And yes, it leads into 7 more seasons after that, but it leads into 9 seasons of Flash, 7 seasons of Legends of Tomorrow, 6 seasons of Supergirl, 4 seasons of Black Lightning, 3 seasons of Batwoman, whatever happens with Superman and Lois, and so many other shows. Because this is what started the CW DC universe. This episode, because if this episode sucked, Season 1 would be so dropped, and it would not have started the Arrowverse. And I think that has to be thought about. Because this finale finished everything that happened in this season. So say what you want about this finale, but without this finale, the Arrowverse couldn't have possibly happened, because as good as season 1 is, this is what season 1 was building to. And if this was bad, then that would have affected everything else. Because unlike most seasons of television, the entire season is built for this finale. The finale is the whole point of the season. And I know that sounds like you could manipulate those words big. Not really, but it's true. So, everything in its whole season is working for this finale. And I don't think that anything could have changed that, and especially this last scene. There could not have been a better last scene that anyone could have asked for. Even in Arrow Season 8, the finale to that did not even match or even go towards this, because this ending is so unbelievably incredible. And it's not just an episode ending, so it's not going to be resolved then. It's going to be resolved months and months. And it's going to have a ripple effect that affects so much else. Because this one episode, this one death of Tommy Merle, the last scene of Arrow Season 1, Episode 23, Sacrifice, is what started the Arrowverse, and is really one of the best one last scenes. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. See you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.